Hey guys, thanks very much for tuning in to another episode of Raw Van Talks. I wanted to talk about focusing on your path, and this talk is kind of based off of, as are the other talks within this series of Raw Van Talks. They're always coming from a place of personal experience and personal viewpoint, so take it with a pinch of salt. Also appreciate that I'm not trying to preach about these things, but sometimes these videos, while I'm sharing it with you guys, are also acting as a reminder for myself about some particular points or principles that I'm trying to govern my own path by, if you will. And this idea of focusing on your own path, for me, comes from different times. So it's not just once, but maybe this has happened a number of times for myself, where I lose focus on my own path and what I'm doing, and I get distracted by looking at what others are doing. And what I've found is that depending on the context in which I'm looking at somebody else's path, so context being whether am I observing and trying to learn from somebody, that's one context. That's absolutely a positive thing for me, because I'm always looking to see, is there something that I can adjust my thinking on from what somebody else has done, and maybe that might work for me. Whereas then another context, and this is the negative one, is that when I'm looking at somebody and I'm comparing where they are by comparison to where I am. And to give an example of how this kind of can be a negative thing, and I'm just going to pick this out of thin air, is if I was looking at somebody else's business and I'm thinking to myself, how is it they've got so many customers? Well, elements of that, and if I was to start comparing that to mine and then start criticizing my own achievements, what I haven't given any attention to is the potential of what are a number of the different factors in that person's journey that are different to mine. So what I mean by that is, like, say for instance, if I take it at face value and think, well, they've got so many customers and I don't, I must be bad, I must be rubbish at this. Might not necessarily be the case. Am I looking at my situation and say, well, where am I spending my time focusing? Am I spending my time focusing on growing the business? Am I spending my time making videos for YouTube instead of growing the business? Is that individual on social media at all? Do they have more hours in the day because they're not on Facebook and they're just focused on growing the business, and that is their focus? Because each of us will have interests that are motivating for us as individuals. And so there are some people with their own businesses that is the passion that they have, is for that business for themselves. Might not be on social media whatsoever. And so, like I said, this is a random example, but by not giving consideration to those facts, and I'm comparing it to myself, it would be an unfair comparison. And what I ultimately would end up doing is taking away from the achievements that I'm making for my own business. And if I'm taking away from those achievements and I'm starting to criticize myself, I'm starting to now feel like I'm a bit of a failure, I'm starting to feel like I'm not quite successful, and that's affecting my mindset. And what I'm doing is I'm reinforcing the whole circle back around. And so focusing on my path, as opposed to comparing myself by focusing on others, I need to focus on mine, and I need to acknowledge the areas in which are positive and the achievements that I make. And one way in which, and I talked about this in a previous video, one way in which I do that is I keep myself a journal. Sorry, got something on that. I keep myself a journal in which I keep track of different aspects of the business. I also keep track of different principles and qualities that I want to be able to kind of keep, that I want to be able to keep myself what's the word? I want to uphold myself or keep myself to a certain standard, and I keep that all in my journal. And by doing that, it helps me to keep focused on my own path, my own journey, and trying to have a clear direction of what I'm working toward. So it doesn't matter if you think of then, by all the time and effort I'm putting into my own path and my own focus on that journey, every individual will be doing that in some shape or some shape or form for themselves, whether they're keeping a journal or not. Everything that they're doing is based on decisions that they're making, based on their mindset, based on their circumstances, based on their environment, etc., etc. And the results that we will yield from our day-to-day lives, if you want, will be as a direct result of how much we're focusing on different elements. So if we want to kind of achieve, if I want to achieve something today or tomorrow of particular note, it'll depend on what I focused on before, what strategy I had in place to get to this point, and then what the results are today will be based on all of that in the past. So looking at where I am today by comparison to somebody else is a totally unrealistic and unfair expectation on myself, if that makes sense. So hopefully that was helpful. That's just my thoughts about it. By focusing on others, it kind of takes away from what you're doing. And I suppose a nice illustration I heard before was that if you think of all the good things that you're doing and the bad things, to focus on the positive, think of them as a brick, as a full solid brick. And if you think of all the negative things as broken bricks, with the negative things that you're doing, discard the broken bricks, but build with the positive bricks. And then when you're looking back at what you've achieved with the positive bricks, you'll realize that you've built an entire wall, as opposed to looking at the pile of rubble with the broken bricks. Which is going to be more valuable to you? Looking at the brick wall that's complete, and it's all the positive aspects of what you're doing, and that's where you're focused, and that's where the results are coming. But when you discard the negative stuff, you're able to focus on actually achieving building the wall for yourself. I don't know, maybe it might, I hope that makes sense. Anyway, focusing on your own path, that's my thoughts on it. It's something that I try to reflect on for myself from time to time, keep myself in check, and not to forget about appreciating the path that I'm on, the destination I'm trying to head towards, and the strategy that I build along the way. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Appreciate all your support as always. With these videos also, what you'll probably notice is that I've got a video series. So while I'm talking about some of these principles, some of these things that I'll talk about might be based on things that I've talked about in the past. But for 2019, the Raw Van Talks, I want to be a particular series, and with that then they'll go into a playlist. And so you might have heard some of these things before, but it'll all be relevant for a kind of playlist of Van Talk in 2019. So thanks very much for your support as always. Appreciated. You guys are absolute legends. Video done.